The story is set in an ancient and mysterious European city, where the old architecture and narrow streets are steeped in history. Hidden in these shadows is a little-known niche religious culture, whose beliefs are deep and mysterious, attracting the curiosity of outsiders. In the heart of an ancient European city where shadows linger longer and whispers of the past can still be heard, Elliott Grey, a scholar of mysterious religious cultures, arrived. His journey was prompted by an urgent letter from an old friend, shrouded in mystery and danger. Stepping off the train, Elliott found himself in a bustling city square where modern life met ancient history. Cobblestone streets, narrow alleys, and towering, time-worn buildings created an atmosphere ripe with secrets waiting to be uncovered. Elliott checked into an old inn managed by a middle-aged woman named Claire. Her sharp eyes and cautious demeanor suggested she knew more than she let on. Handing him the key to room 7, she mentioned breakfast was at 7 a.m. sharp and that if he needed anything, he should just ask. When Elliott inquired about the monastery on the outskirts of the city, Claire's tone turned cautious. She advised him to stay away from there, implying it was not a place for outsiders. Elliott thanked her, but remained undeterred. The monastery was where his friend had found something, or rather something had found him. Later, in the dim light of his room, Elliott read his friend's letter again. The words were filled with distress and urgency. "Elliott, I have uncovered something extraordinary and dangerous. The monastery hides more than it reveals. I need your expertise and discretion. Please come quickly." The next morning, Elliott headed to the city's library, a grand, echoing hall filled with ancient tomes and the faint scent of old paper. While searching through the texts, he felt a presence beside him. A young woman, Lucia, with striking features and an air of quiet intelligence, was holding a stack of books. She asked if he was looking for something, and Elliott introduced himself, explaining that he was researching the monastery and its connections to ancient religious practices. Lucia's expression became serious as she revealed that her grandfather was part of that monastery, but disappeared after participating in a mysterious ritual. She had been trying to uncover the truth ever since. With Lucia's revelation, Elliott felt a spark of both dread and anticipation. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but the picture they formed was far from clear and likely dangerous. As the day ended, the distant tolling of a bell marked not just the hour, but the beginning of Elliott's perilous journey into the heart of the dark faith. With a sense of purpose and a growing bond, Elliott and Lucia set out to uncover the secrets hidden within the ancient monastery. The city's narrow streets and shadowed alleys seemed to close in around them, as if whispering their own warnings. The air grew colder, and a sense of foreboding lingered with every step. The monastery stood on the city's outskirts, a relic of times long past. Its stone walls were overgrown with ivy, and the iron gates creaked under the weight of years. Lucia's determination to find answers about her grandfather was palpable, and Elliott's scholarly curiosity drove him forward despite the evident danger. Inside the monastery, the air was thick with dust and the scent of aged wood. The halls were dimly lit by flickering candles, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with a life of their own. Ancient paintings of stern-faced monks lined the walls, their eyes following Elliott and Lucia as they ventured deeper into the building. They discovered a hidden door behind an old tapestry, leading to a narrow staircase that spiraled downward. The steps were worn smooth by centuries of use, and the air grew colder as they descended into the depths of the monastery. The basement was a labyrinth of narrow corridors and small chambers, each filled with relics of the past. In the deepest part of the basement that they found a chamber that seemed untouched by time. Shelves lined the walls, filled with ancient manuscripts and ritual objects. In the center of the room stood an altar, draped in dark fabric and adorned with strange symbols. Elliott and Lucia approached cautiously, their breaths visible in the cold air. Elliott carefully examined the manuscripts, his eyes widening with each revelation. The text here detailed a ritual known as the Dark Rite, said to summon a powerful entity from beyond our world. The rite required a series of complex steps and, most disturbingly, a human sacrifice. Lucia found an old journal among the texts, its pages filled with her grandfather's handwriting. The Dark Rite, Elliott read aloud, is not merely a ceremony, but a pact. It binds the summoner to the entity, granting power at a terrible cost. He looked up at Lucia, whose face had gone pale as she read her grandfather's final entries. "He was involved in this," she whispered. He performed the ritual." Elliott and Lucia's discovery weighed heavily on them. They knew they had to uncover more about the Dark Rite and its true purpose. Their only hope was to find someone within the monastery who could shed light on her grandfather's fate and the dark rituals practiced there. As they made their way back through the winding corridors, the sound of chanting grew louder. They followed the echoes to a hidden chapel deep within the monastery. Peering through a crack in the door, they saw a group of hooded figures performing a ritual. At the head of the group stood Claire, the innkeeper, her eyes closed in fervent prayer. Elliott and Lucia watched in horror as the ritual reached its climax. Claire raised a ceremonial dagger, and the chanting grew more intense. The air around them vibrated with an otherworldly energy. Just as the dagger descended, Elliott stepped back, his mind racing with the implications of what they had witnessed. They had uncovered a fragment of the dark truth, but the full extent of the monastery's secrets remained hidden in the shadows. With the weight of their discovery pressing heavily on them, Elliott and Lucia knew they had to act quickly. The monastery's dark rituals were not just a danger to them, but to everyone unknowingly drawn into its sinister embrace. They needed a plan to expose the truth, but they also had to find a way to protect themselves from the wrath of the monastery's devotees. Back in Elliott's room at the inn, they strategized their next move. They decided to gather evidence and reveal the monastery's true nature to the world. Lucia's connection to her grandfather would be the key to gaining access to more hidden areas of the monastery. As they discussed their plan, a knock at the door startled them. Claire stood at the threshold, her face a mask of concern. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her quietly. "I know what you're planning," she said in a hushed voice. "You don't understand the full extent of what you're dealing with. The Dark Rite is more than a ritual. It's a binding contract with forces beyond our comprehension." Elliott and Lucia listened intently as Claire revealed her own connection to the monastery. She had been drawn into the faith many years ago, believing in its promises of power and enlightenment. But as she delved deeper, she realized the true cost. Her warnings added urgency to their mission. Determined, they returned to the monastery, this time with Claire's guidance. She helped them set up hidden cameras in the chapel to capture the rituals. The following night they watched from a safe distance as the ritual began. Hooded figures gathered in the candlelit chapel, their chants echoing off the stone walls. At the climax of the ritual, the high priest raised his arms, calling forth the entity they sought to bind. The atmosphere grew tense as the participants knelt in reverence. Suddenly, a figure broke from the group, rushing towards the altar. It was Lucia's grandfather, his face a mask of desperation and determination. Lucia's grandfather attempted to disrupt the ritual, but his actions caused a disturbance that disrupted the summoning. The entity, no longer controlled, lashed out, sending waves of dark energy through the chapel. Lucia's grandfather was caught in the chaotic energy, struggling to free himself. He shouted warnings and pleas, revealing that he had been trapped in a state of limbo, bound by the dark forces he once sought to control. Elliott and Lucia retrieved the footage and fled the monastery, their hearts pounding with fear and adrenaline. Back at the inn, they quickly uploaded the footage online, ensuring it spread before the monastery could intervene. The video went viral, sparking outrage and disbelief. Authorities moved in, and the monastery's secrets were laid bare for all to see. Followers began to question their faith, realizing the extent of the deception and darkness they had been part of. With the monastery exposed, Elliott and Lucia knew their journey was far from over. They had uncovered one dark secret, but the world was full of many more. Together they vowed to continue their work, bringing light to the hidden shadows and seeking justice for those lost to the darkness. As for Elliott's friend, who had initially sent the letter, His fate was intertwined with the monastery's dark secrets. Claire revealed that he had been one of the few who had dared to oppose the rituals from within. His last act was to send the letter to Elliott, hoping that an outsider could do what he could not. Tragically, he was caught and became one of the many lost souls, his disappearance a testament to the monastery's sinister power. The truth about the monastery spread quickly, igniting public outrage. Authorities dismantled the ancient structure, exposing its hidden chambers and dark relics to the light of day. Lucia's grandfather, freed from the dark forces, stood by her side, vowing to make amends for his past mistakes. United by their trials, Elliott and Lucia knew their friendship, forged in darkness, would endure any challenge the future might bring.